Everyone, thank you and welcome to our Boundary Review Committee meeting number 2 being held at Harvest Oak. Tonight we're going to take this opportunity to go over the options we discussed as part of our last meeting and review if these are going to be the suitable options that we want to bring forward to the public information meeting, if we want to look at maybe doing some reiterations of some of those options, or maybe even removing options that we feel are maybe too repetitive, and maybe go with fewer options in preparation for our public information meeting. So before I get too far into it, what I'd like to do is first see if this works. There we go. All right, we'll do the land acknowledgement. So if I can ask my co-chair to jump in, and then we'll get started with the agenda.
Okay, so we begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which HDSB is situated is on the ancestral, treaty, and title lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Mississauga Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Mississauga territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties, and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights, while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for everything.
Thanks, Tara. All right, so just to give you guys an idea of where we're at with process right now, as you recall, we are going through 2 concurrent boundary review processes right now. We're doing the pathway 1, which is the establishment of the English track boundaries for the new high school, and secondly on pathway, as well as determining if we're going with FI or not, which we've kind of resulted currently with our options that we won't be pursuing that for the new high school, but looking at what we're going to change for the FI boundaries for the other high schools south of Dundas. At the same time, we're also doing a pathway 2 process and just keeping you informed along the way as to what we're looking at doing. So if you recall, the steering committee that's here tonight resolved that we're looking at phasing out Inchmersion and Tabe Lake Lock and transferring it over to Garth Webb, just because we're seeing declining numbers in the south. There would be benefit in kind of bolstering those FI numbers at Garth Webb, increase the amount of supports and resources that we have at that school. So right now we're just about to release that survey feedback early next week, just so we can gather information from our parents at the feeder school locations at the elementary schools, just to see what their thoughts are on that. So that's running concurrently, and we're hoping to take that information to the public information meeting that we have rescheduled. We'll talk about that for March. So essentially after tonight, the next step we're jumping right into is we're going to have a public information meeting, which we've also changed to virtual just to accommodate for some of the events that are happening over the evenings and the coming months. And that's where we're going to present it. So tonight we're selecting those options. Once that PIM is over, and prior to the PIM being started, the public information meeting, we will release a survey to the community with the selected options we want to proceed with as a committee, gather some feedback beforehand, a little bit afterwards, and then we'll reconvene at our next meeting, figure out what option we want to recommend, or options if you're undecided or we can't reach consensus. And then the BRC will look at what options we want to bring forward to the director, and then the director will forward those on to the trustees for final approval. Our intent is to get this done by May, so we can start moving on with announcements for our senior administrative teams for the school, programs and things like that. So we really want to get the ball rolling and start getting the buzz going as well. In terms of our agenda tonight, so first and foremost, we'll go through our housekeeping items. So we did receive a few questions along the way, so we'll answer those tonight. We'll look at today's goals as to what we're looking to achieve by the end of the evening. Afterwards, we're going to jump into a review of options 1 to 3 again. I'll keep it brief. We'll just as a quick reminder. We'll also explain, like, you've got all your printed materials out now too, the ones that we kind of explained virtually last time around. You have the paper versions of all that. Afterwards, we're going to jump out to a breakout session. Another good opportunities for warm beverages, cookies, and looking at numbers. The cookies will help you stay awake. The numbers are dry. They're very useful. And afterwards, as this breakout session, I think because we have a small group, we will be able to jam the tables together. You guys can have a look at. We got a couple of phone boards we can review too. You can put your comments on each one of them. Like I said, open forum discussion. And afterwards, if you want to pick one or two of you to kind of debrief the rest of the group, we'll do that. We'll reconvene, and then we'll decide which options we want to present at the public information meeting on March. Read the date now. We'll get into it in a second. And then we'll talk about next steps. So what to expect in the following and upcoming meetings. So housekeeping items. So like I said, we've got printouts. We do have an additional parent representative, Kara DeCassi, from Sunningdale. So I think some of us weren't able to attend, but at least she'll be there to comment or maybe part of the future meeting. So I think she's here tonight. So anyway, we did do a couple updates. So we did have to update the projections for White Oak Secondary School. The max portable capacity was only represented at the South Campus, so that's increased from 16 to 24 portables. We also have the BRC meeting notes. I know it was mostly me talking. Apologize for that. But if you want to take a look at the minutes, just make sure everything that's in there is there, and that the questions that you did ask are present, just let us know, and then you can just email us if you have any changes. If not, we'll just formalize that and we'll post it. And we're also providing some walking maps and transportation information too, which is all provided in the Google Share, and I believe we printed them out as well, so that just gives you an idea of what the transported boundaries are, what the walkable boundaries are. So a couple things we want to go through today. We want to reschedule the public information meeting. A couple things about email protocols. I think you guys have been fine, but as you've probably seen, there's other reviews and things happening around, so we just want to talk about that real quick. Some additional information was requested via email, so we'll go through some of that. And then we're going to jump into the review of our criteria. So based on our policy, we have 6 criteria. Just want to get a sense of what your thoughts are on those criteria and how we're going to weigh them against the options that we're reviewing this evening. You will need your device. So if you got your phone, just got to look at a QR code, and then it's an on-the-spot survey. So we'll explain that in a second. Just a quick overview of what's going on with Table Lake Walk and the Pathway 2. We'll go over the options again, breakout session, debriefs, next steps, and then we get to go home. So the public meeting, initially we were going to have it next week in person, but unfortunately we picked it on the night that Ramadan starting, so we definitely don't want to get in the way of that. So what we've done is we're looking at rescheduling it for March 2nd, and we'll be doing a virtual meeting as well, just acknowledging that evenings might be a little challenging over the next few weeks afterwards. And it might just be easier for more people to attend virtually on this one, especially seeing it's kind of a limited level of impact to a certain degree. So I think it'll be more convenient, conducive for good participation that way. So that's when that meeting is going to occur. We're still going to keep the BRC meeting number 3 for March 9th, just to keep the ball rolling. We're trying to extend it, but then we got March break, and we don't want to push it too far down, so we want to make decisions pretty quick on this, so we can start making other announcements. There is, if we keep it at this date, keep it at this date, but if there is flexibility in the time, earlier, later, it shouldn't be a very long meeting. Might be eating my words, but there's some flexibility there too, so we can have some further discussions there. If you guys let us know, we can certainly do that. And then preference too of online or in person. Usually I like in person on these ones because it's like our final decision and just, thanking everyone. But again, it's a busy time of the year, so I do understand. So email protocols, just quickly, the information, this hasn't happened here, but just in case you're wondering, like all the information we provide to you, it is going to be public. So if we share something with you in advance, just refrain from sharing it to the community until it's officially, once the meeting's done. And then afterwards, when everything is going to be posted online anyways. So just in case things are in draft and not finalized until we get to the meeting, it'd just be preferable that way. So we just want to make sure everyone has the same information. And just again, a reminder, all the emails that were, I'm not sure if we got any emails for this one from the community. Not yet. Okay, it's been a quiet one. If we do receive emails from the community, usually we respond to them. We put them in a folder. We share them with you. We redact the emails. Those aren't to be shared with the water community. That's more for just your information, just in case there's something there that's identifiable. We don't want to have any issues with our parent reps or anything. We just, for your information, your consideration, and anything that we provide as part of the presentation, that will kind of just summarize what the content of the email is. You'll have benefit for the whole thing, and go about it that way. Any questions on that one? Okay. Just a quick little update. I think we talked about this briefly last meeting, but just a heads up. The registration date for Forest Trail FI has passed on January 30th, and because of the huge intake of students in grade 2, we have kind of looked at limiting additional students and reaching out to see if there's any interest in potentially going to Sunningdale Public School, which is also a single track school south of Dundas. That's probably a lot closer and at least aligned with White Oak Secondary School for secondary. So we're going to be reaching out on that, and then that'll also be part of the discussion as we move on to our northwest Oakville discussion of if we're seeing this huge uptake and huge interest now in FI from the north come to the south. It's a lot more than what we expected when we did the last Oakville 3 and 5 boundary review, even surpassing the numbers that we were getting when it was at Dr. David R. So it's quite impressive how much it's increased. So I never would have guessed that one. So yeah, we might have to just reassess. And like we talked about in the last meeting, that's where option 3 kind of comes in, is considering that as an option to redistribute that those FI cohorts in the north to the south. Some of the couple of emails we received from your colleagues in the committee, there was some discussion around what it would look like if we were to keep younger siblings together. As you recall, we're going to be opening up with 9-10 for the new high school. And there might be question of, those 9 and 10s having older siblings that are currently going to White Oak Secondary School. What would be the impact if they were to just stick around with their cohorts or their older siblings? So the long and short of it, just to get to it, is that we've got about, for September, about 61 students that have older siblings that could potentially stay. So that does kind of drop the students by a good chunk. Not some to a degree that it makes it not workable, but it is a good amount of students. If we are to provide this, what I would say is that we would provide transportation to the younger siblings only as long as the older sibling is attending White Oak Secondary School. So if once that student graduates, then they'll either have to find their own way to WAS, or then they can just go to the new high school. Frankly, I would recommend at this point, just you'll be in the community. The school is probably much closer to you anyways to go to the new high school. But again, everyone has a different situation. So I think whichever way, either we formalize it, or again, if we provide out of area attendance and they can look for courtesy seats, that could be an option as well. So the same is true too with zone 1 for Garth Webb. So currently zone 1 here, this is currently going to Palermo, but those students there are also going to White Oak Secondary School. So we definitely want to align the grade 8 cohorts from Palermo and also redirect them to Garth Webb. So in that case there, we have far fewer students, about 5 that are currently going to WAS that would be impacted by this with younger, older siblings. So again, it would be the same premise, is that you could jump on the bus with their older siblings until they graduate or decide to go to another school, at which point the younger sibling would lose transportation.
For the North catchment, like if kids want to do an IB program, is White Oak still the school to go to, or is there another one that's going to be offering IB?
No, that's correct. White Oaks is still the IB school. However, for IB, you don't receive transportation if you're out of the WAS boundary. So you just have to get your own transportation. Right?
So I guess the boundaries will change, because we're right beside the IB. So currently we are White Oaks catchment. My kids are IB, so I'm not sure.
So if you're an IB, yeah, at that point, I think you would. Are they like an IB 10, 11?
No.
9? Yeah. So you wouldn't technically be affected by it. You're 9 now. No, because they're going to be in 11 by the time we open the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So by that point, you'd be grandparented in.
Right.
But anybody that's in grade 7, there's only one grade that will enter pre-IB tentatively, and that might lose transportation. So if there's a current grade, Lorraine, correct me if I'm wrong here, 7 students this year,
They would be grade 9 students.
grade in 27.
Grade 9,
If they don't have to-
Oh, sorry, yeah, in the grade 8s, that might end up at grade 9 IB,
Yeah.
or they might lose their transportation because they're the grade 8s this year, I think, are the only ones that are actually going to make it to, that'll be moved. Sorry. This year,
This year,
9,
grade 10 class of 27.
27, which we're moving, yeah. So those are the ones that
Why
will.
would grade 6 come through? I just try to do the math.
Yeah, so grade 6, you'd probably, yeah, you're not going to get transportation for IB.
Unless she still has to have I have 3 children at once.
Oh, okay.
And one's in CPP, so he's there for 5
So the
Good.
current grade 6 students will be grade 9 in 2028. So if you have a sibling that's in grade 12 at that time, you would probably get a bus. You would, because that grade 12 students, it's a sibling, so they would still get the bus with
The 1 year.
one.
And if you have a child still there.
Oh, if you have a child in CPP, then that'd be a courtesy seat situation. So every situation is very
Yeah,
different. So, but it's
Just
your,
Because it's a tricky situation. I know there's a lot of work that goes into the board, but there's so many nuances to consider.
that's why we tend to try to stay away from legacy exemptions as much as we can. It's just clean break, especially in high school, like as much as siblings, I got 2 younger boys, like as much as I want them to hang out and chill, I'm pretty sure by the time high school hits,
I
like
know.
it's just
Logistics, almost things.
that's where I understand. Yeah, dual drop off. Also living that right now, not great. So yeah, that's gonna be some of the challenge. So again, it's something that I would recommend against, but again, if we are to do it, the transportation we need to add, because then we get into a very elongated process and having to have essentially 2 extra years of transportation for what might be very few students. So that's where it starts getting challenging, because maybe a lot of them won't opt to go for it and they want to go to the new high school as opposed to finishing. Whereas it's really challenging for a grade 11, 12 student to move to a new high school, especially like we don't have as high of the numbers and they've got their pathways for specific programs. So 9, 10 is kind of the sweet spot. After that, it's a little bit of a challenge. So I guess I'm here.
Yeah, sorry. So even if they're in a specialized program like IB and like currently they're getting bused, the bus will continue even though it's not their homeschool? Is that what we're,
It depends on what grade they're in. So
like,
if
let's
they're
say they're in grade 9 right now.
in grade 9 right now, by the
But
time
they're
they're
in
going to be technically legacy exempted because they're going to fall in grade 11.
Even though it's not the regular program. It's still-
That's correct. So they just be a grade 11 student that technically should be going to WASP regardless. So we legacy exempt that, because let's say if they were to admit themselves the day before the implementation, then they would be an English track student, they would get legacy exempted. So it comes up to the same thing. It's kind of a big, usually at the end of all this, we have a nice, seems complicated, but pretty simple chart that says if you're like in this year, this grade, this is what's impacted, and we lay it all out. That makes it a little bit easier for implementation and for parents to kind of hone in on, this is my situation and who goes who. And if it gets ultra complicated, then you call us. And then I'm going to call her. She's going to help me. Any other questions on this one, or? Okay. So that was that question. There we go. Okay, so walkways. So we've provided some walkways as part of this as well. And essentially what this shows you is the distance between the school itself, its property line, and if we're to go out as one would walk or ride or whatever else, 3.2 kilometers. So it actually uses the same approach as Google would, network analysis. It goes through the roadways and whatnot. So when you're reading your map, the way to read this is if you're within the colored or highlighted area, you'd be considered a walker. If you fall outside of that, then that's where you'd be considered a transported student because you're beyond that 3.2 kilometer distance. There are potentially some exemption areas where if there's certain physical features or roadway types, typically major arterials such as Trafalgar, I think is one of the examples. Sometimes, even though you're within the 3.2 kilometers, we might grant an exemption to provide transportation because there's a hazard in place. So that might be a reality there. If there's not a safe crossing or there's challenges, especially like sometimes Dundas is a great example of how it can be challenging going across that 5-lane highway. Another question was in terms of the transportation impacts between options 1 and 3. So we took this back from her, and I think it's in your package as well, kind of a comparison of the number of buses required for each of the options. Based on the numbers we have now, there would be a slight increase in transportation needs between option 3 and option 1. That's primarily because zones 6 and 7 right now, there's not a huge number of students that opt for F5 from grade 8 to grade 9. So I think the intake's a lot higher at the elementary panel. And so because of that, we're consolidating a lot of the areas together. There's one large route picking up a number of students. So right now in option 1, this would probably be one route, right, Romer?
Sorry.
Between 6 and 7, it's about one bus that you've got going in that area, right? Picking up kids.
Yeah, I think I said maybe 1 or 2 buses, yeah.
So, and if we were to split it because it's so few buses, then we probably need another bus because now we're going in 2 completely different directions. So there's a slight increase, but what I will say is eventually this area here, as well as some of the areas down here, they're not built out yet. So as those build up, eventually we're gonna have to add more buses anyway. So we'll become more efficient and there might be opportunities. Romer, correct me if I'm wrong, but as these areas grow too, those buses will fill up. So I think over time it will balance itself out and probably be pretty equal. So any questions on this one? Again, these are just questions that came up from our other boundary review committee members about differentiation between some of the options. All right, criteria. So we kind of went over these briefly last go around, I believe. Usually when we're going through our boundary review process, we have to find some metrics and some metrics or performance indicators of how do we think this option is faring compared to others. So usually what we do is we identify a number of criteria which are in our policy, and we look at all of the options in relationship to these criteria. So the 6 that we typically have are geographic areas and boundaries. So what we're trying to do there is when we're creating a zone, does it make sense geographically? Are we trying to keep these areas contiguous to one another? Do they kind of follow a little bit more of a neighborhood model where it's more of that community area? So they're together. We don't have some outlying areas that are being pulled in, and trying to keep that as much as possible. So where there's the opportunity to do that, we do so. We're trying to balance the overall enrollment as another criteria. So in this case here is, are we utilizing the space that we have, not having over reliance on portables where we don't need them? So if we have empty space, are we using it? Are we oversubscribing a school or undersubscribing a school? And looking at that and seeing what options fare better than others on that viewpoint. Viability of programs, another important one. So this review, I'm a little less concerned with regards to that one, other than the path, but the pathway 2 we were discussing earlier with T and Lake Walk, that's a good example of that, where if we're creating boundaries where the number of students within that boundary are too small, then we're going to have problems delivering the program because we're not going to have that critical mass of students, which then generates teachers, which generates resources to offer the breadth of program that we want for a successful program. So we've got to make sure that we've got enough students feeding into a program to do so. Stable long-term boundaries, that criteria is looking at are the options that we're presenting, are they going to have a long-standing effect? Are we going to have to come back at this in the next 5 years, or is it 10 years out? And the idea is the less boundary reviews we do over a short period of time, the better. Medium term, same thing. So can we develop this in a way where we're not going to have to go at this again in a few years? Other than we're opening a new school or doing something of that nature, but we don't want to be just moving kids for the sake of it. Which ties into the next one, which is the student experience, where we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, We're cognizant of the impacts this has on students when we're moving them. So ensuring that when we are moving, we're reducing the number of moves as much as possible, ensuring that we're not impacting students more than we need to. And when we are impacting them, making sure that there's a smooth transition from one school to the next. And proximity to the school, that's kind of tied to some of the walkouts we were just looking at earlier. Are the boundaries we're developing something that is cognizant that we're trying to keep kids as close to school as possible so we can create these neighborhood models, these walkable schools and more accessible schools. So those are the 6 that we typically use. And then if there's other ones that are more, that fall outside of that or in very particular situations for a specific review, that parent representatives want to focus on, then that's another one we can, through consensus, agree on and add that as a criteria that we're going to measure against these options. Any questions on those?
Did we consider any upcoming construction, and especially residential construction in the area?
No, I don't. I just assume that with growth, it's kind of a reality in North Oakville, much like it is with Milton. So it's kind of hard to work around that. But can you expand on what you would be looking for and measuring it as a criteria?
Like, because if residential construction happens and it continues ongoing, it's growing like drastically overall in Oakville, then obviously like we'll be in a need of another boundary review very soon, right?
Oh, you mean in terms of student generation?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I thought you meant like a safety or, okay, no, great question. Yeah, it's part of the balance of the overall enrollment. So when we're developing our enrollment projections, we look at all of the growth that's happening within each one of the respective zones. So each zone will have a projection for its existing community. So that's the kids that are currently in that zone that we know of today, and what their survival model is over year to year to year. So that means what's the likelihood of them to go from grade 9 to grade 10 at our board, because some students move from school to school, and we do that all the way to grade 12. So that's existing community. And then we add in the development, which is what you're referring to, which we look at all of the number of units that are proposed within an area. So we receive all the development applications from municipalities. They give us the number, the type. We have discussions with our development partners to know when they're planning on closing on those units, when occupancy is going to happen, and then we attribute a student yield to those. A student yield is essentially saying historically for every unit we have, how many kids do we generate? So for an example, a single family home, for that particular unit, we'll say we get 0.2 kids per unit. So for every 5 units, we'll generate 1 student, and that's carried over a 15-year yield. So then we summate both of those together, and we have a projection. So yes, considered, but that's how we take in all that information. So we have the full development track for the next 10, 15 years, I think. And we also account for future growth that hasn't been submitted yet, because North Oakville is part of a larger plan. We know what the final unit outcome is projected to be. So we're able to kind of look beyond the 10-year piece and say, oh, okay, well, when is that going to necessitate the need for a new high school, let's say, east of Trafalgar. All right. I think we're going to be able to take out our devices. Not for Netflix, unfortunately, but for Mentimeter. So for this one, what you do is either you can go on menti.com and put in that code, or you can just link up on that QR code right there, and it's going to load up a survey. And then what it does essentially, this is really useful too when you want to do something real time, especially larger groups. But what you can do here is just answer the questions, and then real time, we can just see what your thoughts are on a particular question and go from there. This. Is it working, or is it taking way too fast? Oh, there we go. There you go. Yeah, so again, if you just want to go menti.com, you can use this code too. You'll jump right into the survey. And again, trustees and staff are not allowed to play. So yeah, first question, is your student walk to school, bus, or is driven? So a lot of good walkers, busing. Oh. All right, so this just gives us an example. So as we're going through it now, you can see kind of the proportion amount. So this question doesn't really have anything to do with review, but it gives you an example of what we're trying to achieve. Okay. So the next question is, what's your biggest concern regarding the boundary change? Oh, okay. How many times did you put that?
I put it once, but it went back to the back screen.
It has a supplement, I think.
Yeah, and then it didn't automatically
Go to the next question, yeah.
Sorry.
All right, so let's go through
There's
some of
only
these.
7 of us here, so.
Okay. Usually what it does is the more responses you have on a certain matter, it gets a bigger word. So fair enough.
Sorry.
All right, so let's start with the French because it's like front and center. Want to expand on that? I'm pointing at you because it's.
I guess my biggest concern is where the French immersion program is gonna end up being or where we live, right? Whether they're gonna end up going to White Oaks or whether they're gonna go to Garden West. And because they're currently at Forest Trail, obviously my preference would be, and I'm sure my child's preference would be for them to be in the same place where all their friends are, as opposed to, I think one of the options has that carve out. I think it's option 3 with some portion of kids go to White Oaks.
Yeah.
So
Keeping the corals together.
keeping them together.
Well, that's definitely fair. And the outcome of that, so just that's what we want to do. So with option 3, that's going to come with changing where the elementary is eventually going to go from Sunningdale moving forward. So that might be because whoever's in Forest Trail now, we're not looking to probably redirect.
No, but then by the time they hit high school, they wouldn't be, right? Like right now, my son's in grade 6, so he wouldn't be moving to, and so half of his friends live in our neighborhood and half of them live in the Forest Trail area. But so some of them will go to White Oaks and some of them will go to our club. So yeah, that's all.
No, that's a fair concern, keeping cohorts together. Oh, wow, I'll up here. Okay, I see a few things regarding peers, teaching improvement, peers. Does anybody want to jump in on the peers side of things on what some of that concern is related to? I'm just seeing up here, you have peers coming up twice.
Yeah, I can jump here.
Yep.
So maybe for the new boundaries, especially if there is like the cohort or the peers are together, and then with the new boundaries, the families, they prefer them to switch that student from one school to the new school, just because it is like nearest than their houses, or it is because it is located within the different boundary than the school that they already attended. So this will affect the student itself, because they will feel that they are separated from their peer. So I think this situation, I don't know how we can consider it. Or maybe there will be that option that they can continue in the same school, even though the boundaries has changed, just because they already attended from the beginning of the school until they graduate. So I don't know if that's maybe an option, but in the same time, if we think about the bus and transportation, maybe it is better that every peer go to their boundaries according to what is the HTSP prefer. Because this is, again, the transportation is also the money. We have to consider the peer, but at the same time, we have to consider how much transportation we offer as the HTSP to the students that are out of the boundary, but just because they attend a school before the boundary implemented. So, it's very gray area that you cannot be against the peer, but at the same time, you have to see the budgets,
Well, I completely empathize because it's certainly an issue in that, none of these options will ever be perfect in achieving all of the goals that we're seeking to, establish and meeting all of the criteria fully. It's just, how much are we willing to take away from some? So that's why part of the discussion is, we definitely want to provide legacy exemption for the more senior grades. And really the ones that are more impacted are definitely the ones that will have started grade 9 at WASP for their first year. They will be moving after their first year. Part of some of the concerns that can be addressed, that peer piece, and the other thing that, so maybe a couple of things is first, there's a lot of lead time to let them know that it is coming in a few years. So we prepare the student, give them an ample time. So between the decision, hopefully being made in May, wherever we land, and June of 2027, there's a lot of time and preparation that can be put into in terms of transitioning, preparing the students, and working through that. Second piece, there's 3 pieces to this one. The second piece is that because North Oakville is so large and that we have such large cohorts, I think to your point, you'll still have a number of grade 9s that will be moving together. There will be a lot of them in North Oakville that, you know, they won't feel alone. It's not like we have a very small area moving. So I think that there's going to be some opportunities for connections being made there, and that'll be helpful. And the last piece is in terms of the size of the school. We definitely want to make sure that when we open the school, we have a very good body of students. And again, it goes back to my earlier piece. It's less about program viability, but more so around, you know, the more students you have, the more teachers you have, and the more likely you are to have those extracurricular activities, and the more likely you have to start having clubs and things like that, where it's a little bit more challenging when you have a smaller enrollment, because you don't have that mass of resources to draw on. So, and then that's where we have the balances. Like we want to keep those peer relationships together, but we also want to make sure that when they're starting, they've got as many of the resources in place as
You know,
possible.
like always the parents and the HDSP staff, they have the mature viewing on the decision, but the teens are teens. Whatever you say, they have totally different view. They feel that we are out of the world. So,
Maybe we got to throw some reverse psychology in there too, because yeah, my kids the same thing. So those are 3 points. Oh, go ahead.
I actually just have a question, since if the school starts off at grade 9 and 10, and kids who are in grade 10, I imagine right now they're able to take classes that are grade 11 classes, like. Sorry?
Yes.
So how does that end up working out if there's no grade 11s? Like, will there be courses? Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's not my realm.
Here's what program offerings would look like. You're starting out with grade 9 and 10, right?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to
And
start
so
with.
every high school really offers a range of courses. You have the same kind of compulsory courses, but courses can look different depending on student interest and need. And so that notion around being able to do some reach ahead, I'm sure will be considered when we look at course offerings for that group of students. And then again, what typically drives what you can offer is dependent on the students that actually want to take those courses. So you may offer, let's say, grade 11 functions class. Often there's a reach ahead in math as an example. But you need to make sure that you have a constant number of students to be. So if you only have 3 enrolled, perhaps you have to work through, just like any other secondary school, work through what we do in terms of how that would be, how you meet those needs for students, what other options might be available. So I would suggest that it would be, instead of expanding grade 11 course options, giving some historical tracking of where students do a reach ahead. And then again, depending on student enrollment, that's of course be delivered e-learning for sure. So there's lots of flexible, yeah, depending on the course, right? Summer school as well, so the way a lot of other students do some reach ahead. Eleanor has lots of oversight at summer school. So there's lots of ways in secondary schools that students can reach ahead. I am hearing you around that interest in a school in which there's multi-years, and 9 and 12 students do their reach ahead. So we'll consider that of course offerings for sure.
And it goes back again to the more students you have, the more opportunity. Because even if we were to start with just grade 9, you run the same issue the following year.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that, Tara. Yeah, any kind of curriculum related questions on the point? That's where I get scared, want to run away. No, you're good.
Sorry, I've been, French immersion kids can skip grade 9 French and go directly to grade 10 if they opt out of French immersion. So then in grade 11, there'd be no French class for them. Grade 11 French would be there at their grade 10. That was, yeah, anyway.
From the test my knowledge though, so basically what Tara, what you said though, is that if we have enough interest to offer a grade 11 course, albeit we don't have grade 11 students, we might be able to offer the
Yeah, you're looking at a 9-10, right?
9-10, yeah,
So
start.
what you're talking about in your grade 10 courses are included for your grade 9s. I would say most grade 9s are reach ahead. I think you do start to see in grade 10 and in particular course areas as well, subject areas rather. So I would say math would be one that we typically see there reach ahead. When students are looking at a kind of a full math and science program, there's lots of different senior courses to take. So again, I think when we look at the course offerings for the kids, we'll make sure that we assign those reach ahead courses that we see being utilized at a grade level levels. So we can accommodate that next.
Right. So we got IB program. Yeah, while we're on programs, questions about IB, was that more around the what we discussed earlier with transportation and
I think
options?
it's more the availability of your program, regional program, but I think that's been discussed at length already.
Well, one of the benefits now is that, Claire might yell at me, but now that we're taking away a lot of pressures at loss, that should relieve some room to maybe accommodate more IB throughout Oakville. So I think like there's a balancing. So as you'll see in the options, like there's a lot of space available now. So I think that's a way now we'll be able to offer more pre-IB to IB at loss now that we have the space for it. So transportation might be a little bit more of a challenge, but that was the same for the rest of Oakville. Just so happened that the north had transportation access. But I do know that town of Oakville is offering free transit for students now, and they're looking to expand it. So thankfully, that's a huge driver. So now that students can have some reliance on taking municipal transit and using those forms of transportation. So that's a good outcome of that as well. So that's IB. Population size, did we cover that one off a little bit in terms of future population? We can get that in the numbers. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. Uncertainty around what aspects?
It is apparent, like, it is concerning naturally, right? There's so many questions that come up, so it's good that you're asking some questions. I will definitely share that with our families. You guys are thinking in every aspect, but the new high school that we're projecting to build, is that gonna have any specialty programs that we're thinking, or? Will it have French immersion, IB, or?
No French immersion, I can tell you that, but the rest, do you want to go over it, Claire?
Yeah.
Special programs for you in high school.
Yes, yes.
Any specialty programs projected to take place at the new high school?
Well, we are flirting with possible things right now. So we're looking at our performance athlete program, possibly. We're looking at advanced placement, possibly. There's also programs called OYAP, SHISM, which are specialty around specialty areas of academics. We are looking to name the principal sooner rather than later because we really want all this information to get to the community. Normally we name them quite late this year, but they have a year to prepare, but we want to jump on what those programs will be so that families know and they can make a decision much earlier. Tara's in charge of all of that secondary programming, and so we're talking a lot about what's too much.
We have like the big one, I guess, IB or this.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and we have four on our board, which is quite substantial, to be honest, within the region. So we have one in each municipality, and ISTEM, again, we would say we have very full cover in terms of ISTEM. Essentially, you want to be able to run programs like that are specialized, that you can have a rich complex of students that can be partaking and involved in the
Yeah,
program.
for sure.
And so it isn't something because it is so specialized available in every school community. I would say advanced placement has been a program that we've offered in our board for over 15 years, really successfully. We really have expanded that in the last year or so across many of our schools because there's been a real interest for that for our families. So we're really responsive to family, and they'll be wonderful programs.
Awesome. Thank you.
We're also looking at there's a CPP suite that's constructed as part of the school
Yeah, I
too.
saw that. That's interesting. So it'll be built to have a CPP. program.
Correct, yeah, no, we push for it.
But
at
again,
the
you
onset.
move kids that are already in a CPP program elsewhere.
No, we wouldn't do it as part of this process. That would be entirely a special education decision at the end of the day. So that's, yeah, I think it's all based on their process, procedures. I'm sure there's a lot of parent involvement in there too. Like that's a little bit out of my element. That's why we keep it out of the,
Yeah, who do you talk to about that? 'Cause that could be very concerning. There's a vulnerable population. There's so many things to consider.
I'd say, I just reach out to, your in-school EA and rep, but I'd say that process is completely outside of it. It's there. And I think usually it's new registration. I mean, they can just push it up to their supervisor.
When you say EA, you mean exec assistant?
No,
You mean educational assistant?
Educational assistant.
Oh, yeah.
But who to talk to though?
Yeah.
Or-
That's a board question.
Yeah, let me get you that.
Yeah.
Because historically, I don't think we've moved
I would be
students.
surprised, but I will ask.
The program will be
I feel
there.
more certain doing that.
I know the rooms are there, and that's as far as my knowledge goes on that front, but that's good for me to do some learning on that side too. So thank you for your question. All right, readiness of new school. We got two, okay, we got readiness on a couple of these, and then we'll end on traffic safety, my favorite subject. Readiness. Is that just in terms like, is the school going to be fully constructed,
In
finished?
terms of procedures and processes compared to an established school, which has been running for a few years already.
I'll say this, like in Halton, like, it's been slow over the last 5 years, but historically, like, we open schools pretty much every year, if not every other year. So we're pretty well acquainted with opening schools and establishing procedures, and a lot of it is board procedures at the end of the day. A lot of times when we hire a principal, it's well-seasoned principal. They know how to get a program up and running and ready to do it. And there's a number of other committees, I'm sure, that are working on school openings as well, that make sure that we have as much of a smooth transition. There's a lot to do in the first place, so we're pretty well equipped and ready to go and have quite a bit of experience doing it. So I don't think we've.
I think it's also in terms of, it touches population size, no rating in different ways. For example, DW is also a pretty new school, but it has already reached maximum capacity of portables as far as I know.
Which one, sorry?
DW.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah, and portables are kind of a reality that we see in Halton. I'll be honest with you, like the ministry always wants us, and rightfully so, to not build to our peak capacity, but build to the long-term number of students that we expect. Because we always have that big bubble, and then things just drop. And we're in a lot of areas, we're past the bubble, and now portables are gone, and we're starting to see empty spaces. So DDW was definitely one that grew extremely fast, and I think part and parcel of that was because it had the FI program too, so that further accelerated its growth by pulling students from Udnowie and other areas in the north. So I think that's a lesson learned on our end, so that's why we've shifted it all to the south. And that's also a reason why we're not introducing FI here immediately. We're looking at down the road to see, like, do we have the space? Portables are also a good thing in the sense that if we are reaching that max capacity, then we have a much better what's the word I'm looking for? Chance of making a good business case to the ministry to get that next high school. We do have another one designated east of Trafalgar that's planned. We're just gonna have to see where the numbers roll out and see if we have enough students to warrant it. So, you know, we've got those future milestones in our minds, and we just have to see where things are going. So we're prepared for it. Same thing with DDW. Like, this is what relieved a lot of DDW's pressures, as well as shifting that FI program out and the future opening of Oakville 5. Last one, at least traffic safety, and we'll move on to the next thing.
I think it's just the three principal kilometers. They're usually used to working with the short distance with the crossing guards, right? And then this new school, it just seems so far from the house, and it was like that they're gonna have like crossing guards in it through just like they have it now, because it's like brand new from elementary to high school, just to like babies. And the first year transition is just a little bit concerning. You know, they get to school for the ones walking to school, going unmarried, and I just feel like it's quite a distance. So it's like any safety spot.
and the other thing is, like, adding to your comment, the kids, when they're transitioning to high school, they're always walking to Tim Hortons. Like, that's part of their kind of growing up, right? Going to the mall. So with the new school, I don't think there's any easy access to any such places, right? There are no plazas around. There's no Tim Hortons around.
It is the top north of the development. So it is little bit like
Yeah.
on the top of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Isolated.
Yeah.
yeah, I know, right?
So for the access, there will be no access.
There will be no access, right?
Yeah, there's shops on, that's what I was gonna say, Burnham Thorpe is.
Yes.
So, they're mom and pop shops.
So we're concerned regarding the safety, that's correct, because you know, like, they are not in the middle of the houses, whereas the houses, I know there's a development, so maybe after 5 years, it will be like a very mini city, whatever it is there. But right now, it is just in the top, like, you know, at the top of the mountain by itself. So, and the students, they are just graduate, but I think in the same time, you know what? They
won't
want
go anywhere.
to become independent. So they feel that, oh my God, we are going to a school that no one can see us, you know.
There is, so there is some commercial that's in the Loyalist area, so they're, on Burnham Thorpe, so they're kind of like, live work units. And that whole Burnham Thorpe originally was a regional road. That's now been assumed by the town, so that's gonna be urbanized in a more pedestrian friendly, urban, like even in front of the school, like it's gonna have a full multi-use path, bike lanes, things like that. So they're really changing what Burnham Thorpe was meant to be looking like, because eventually that whole area is probably gonna be residential along all of Burnham Thorpe. Even north of Udanawi, Preserve Drive, you're already seeing it, like it's punching through, and we're starting to get through all of that development too. So all that's gonna be a neighborhood. And in terms of the 6-line crossing and all that, there is going to be a signalized crossing at Loyalist and 6 line, so we'll have that. And there's a 4-way stop currently there. And usually I'd say by the time we have a number of students walking and biking to school, the town will either on day one, or I'll have to confer with the town, because it is high school students, so they tend to try to prioritize elementary students first. But certainly if there's a huge warrant to implement a crossing guard, maybe a higher order crossing like a PXO, we'll explore that to make sure that there's that safety component. But like I said, with the urbanization of Burnham Thorpe and what's coming down the pipe, I think that's definitely going to help it. And pretty much the surrounding area is going to build up around the school over time as well. So it's, and typically high schools, we do put them on major arterials or collectors, just given the nature of them and where they're located. But yeah, to your point, I think a lot of it's going to be, you know, starting them now to explain to them the importance of traffic safety, walking to school, getting accustomed. So by the time they hit grade 8 and grade 9, they get into the mix of things. And it's going to be a very bikeable area as well too. 6 line, they're also urbanizing. Like it's changed quite a bit to what it used to be. So then there'll be that nice direct spine right up from Dundas all the way up to Burnham for that too. So. But again, that's certainly something that as the school grows in population, and if there are walkers and bikers, then the town's would be a lot more likely to implement.
Yeah, but I don't think this is something in the near future, especially the road is still, you know, like under construction and under maintenance. So maybe this is something after 5-6 years, we can see the biking line and everything. But for now, it is, you know, like it is one go, one bag, and
Yeah, I know they're doing a lot of the final works along 6 line right now, and they're looking to build those houses soon. Our next elementary school, this like it's pretty much
on
this.
the 6 line, they are still under construction. They are doing something under, but not the north of it, not yet.
Not north of Burnham. No, that's going to be a while, and most of that's going to be improvement, to be honest. It's really south of
Yeah,
it, so.
and still even with the without like traffic light without, it is just still the flashing light.
Yeah.
So I know it is like the school is a good idea, everything is a good idea, the area is developing and is moving, flowing in, but at the same time, they are still, the road is not yet.
And that's going to take some time, yeah.
Especially with like this big school with one go, one back. It will be very traffic, it will be really very traffic.
Well, and that's like when the school opens, we'll have to monitor like on-site traffic. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of parent drop-offs, but the way that the site's been designed, like I think it's gonna be conducive to that as well.
Yeah, but you know, comparing it will be no big comparison because the White Oak also in the area, the road of 6 line also one go one back. It's the same thing, like.
But they're busy.
Yeah.
Like the high schools
Yeah.
are super
Yeah.
busy. And usually what that means is,
Like I drive my daughter within 2-3 minutes. If it is 15 minutes before 8, she will reach 8:12. 20 minutes.
go ahead, that's why walking is the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I've hit most of your concerns up. So those are definitely things we want to talk about. Some of them, it's just part of being in a new development and new growing area. But certainly things that you want to raise and also keep in front of mind as we're opening the school and letting your not only the board, but also the board can help discuss it, like the safety issues, crossing guards. We have good partnerships with the town too to help out with some of those issues. Okay, so in terms of importance, okay, so yeah, it's a good cut right here. So yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we're as close to the schools as possible, and I think we're in an agreement there. Student experience, that's huge. Okay, and viability of programs. Okay. All right, so no, this is good to know. So we'll definitely have that perspective moving forward in terms of that. I think viability of programs, I'm not overly concerned about that becoming an issue if we're sticking to kind of what we've presented thus far, but if we make changes, we'll keep that top of mind. Yeah, overall, it seems like we're pretty well balanced. Oh, actually, sorry, we still got some thumb around.
While you're reading it, can I just ask a quick question, which has nothing to do with boundary review?
Absolutely.
Since you're talking about athletic programs at your school, is the school gonna have a swimming pool?
No.
Oh, yeah, he actually, he's the guy. Are you building a pool, Brett?
No, but I'm building a dome. Soccer dome. So there will be a full, well, we have a partner that we've partnered with, a third party entity. And the intent is to have a full turf, 6-lane track, and over the winter months, there will be a dome on the entirety of the turf track, or sorry, the turf area. So that way they can still have some winter programming, things like that. So, we don't do pools anymore. Those are all,
Well, sadly, the schools don't have pools, the kids can't swim in them. Like,
Oh,
Play-Doh, you can't use the Play-Doh? Oh.
And I was gonna say, we have many of our schools that have very amount of schools that don't have swimming pools in our school. They just access community pools. So like, that's an example, they're over at the center.
Well, why don't we have the community pool, like, right on property? It's so unfortunate that it's not usable anymore. I'm longing for that. And I remember there's a pool. Yeah, I was so like looking for, like, yay, they're gonna use it again, let's go see it, but it's nearly impossible for them to get to full time currently and red tape with. Sorry. No, you could use it, I could go there all the time privately and pay for it. As a school, there's no like club or team or access to school. Which is, this is a great opportunity to ask you guys.
Oh, yeah,
Why is that?
Send email all your stuff.
I've always wondered, there's a pool right there. It's like the flows.
Yeah, I don't know the circumstances for minors. I would say that's not the case for all school communities. And it comes across to teams use community pools all the time, all over the place, and they have a way to go to and fro, just like we have field players who get on trip fields and they have off site. I don't know that I really don't know the White school situation, and that's perhaps a new situation for them. So whether or not the pool is available or not, wouldn't be really contingent on whether or not your student team, because yeah, I mean, they can find a space, there's lots of community pools, they can access that. But the separate conversation in terms of just maybe the interest with the ability of staff to be able to take that on, because it sounds like.
So we have done it.
Is that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's probably just wonderful schools. Yeah,
And these are using community pools.
absolutely.
Also, putting it for community staff, yeah, the cost of rent.
Yeah.
So, it's, yeah, I think some schools, you know, this team thrives in this
Yeah.
boundary or, try to do it.
Yeah. Okay. But it's still, I guess, would be school property. So the kids would have access to it? Or
Yes.
would it be a community dome?
It's not a community dome, so we will have access to the dome during school hours. So it's kind of a 7 to 5. And kids have full access during school and a certain amount of time after school. Afterwards, it's the third party entity that's going to be licensing it out to the community. But at least this way, we get full benefit of the dome during our typical school hours. There's opportunities for a few evenings that we get it for free, but I say a few, it's kind of a handful, 6. So yeah. But it's, like I said, for the most part, we don't typically use it in the evening anyways, and we get, otherwise, half the time it's covered in snow awards, so yeah, we can't use it anyways. So at least this way, we're definitely providing a lot of opportunities there. And I think that's part and parcel why we're looking at athletics program in that facility too. So you're not getting a pool, but you're getting it done. All right, so I think we still landed the same kind of priority of criteria. So siblings usually I tie that up with student experience. If you guys are okay with that, so instead of creating other criteria, that's the focus you have is the siblings as much as we can. So I'm fine if you guys are fine with just leaving it under student experience. Might be easier. Consensus? You can say no. You won't hurt my feelings, promise. So if we're good with that, and then availability of programs, that falls under program liability, but maybe can I get some explanation on that one? It's like all the options, they're pretty much, well, it's either are we adding FI or not, so that's kind of the purview of this one. It's English FI is really what we do through bound reviews. Everything else is kind of a more of a specialty program. So I'm going to go with, we're okay with the 6? Oh. Can you expand on that one? So it says availability programs considering the developments of North Oakville transportation.
So I have a question. Maybe it's more for Tara. So when you're considering the programs for this new high school, is it considered like, for example, I'm not 100% familiar with that, but for example, for the Chisholm, it is very south in Oakville, and maybe there's one in Milton. So this school is in the middle between both. Maybe you can put the Chisholm here. Also for another program, there's another school nearby, so you will not consider this program in this school because there is another one nearby. So are you considering it in that way, or just consider because it is a new school, we will put as much as possible because of the population? How are you evaluate?
So I guess to bring things in one perspective, I don't know how many high schoolers in the room, some may or may not. All high schools offer a robust program that will allow pathways to every single pathway and every range of opportunity.
Correct.
You'll have some variations in grade 11 and 12 optional courses because in some schools, lots of kids want to take law, and other schools, they may want to take a religion course. So you'll have different variations of optional courses that you'll see in grade 11 and 12, but you have a really robust program around arts and Zen and creative world studies, languages, etc. That's all just inherently part of the secondary school. There are, again, when we talk about specialized programs, we're really talking about in kind of the way that we're framing it, IB, as we talked about, ISTEM, and then AP, the next place we put in most for schools. Chisholms, which is what one of the pieces that Claire alluded to, are grade 11 and 12 programs that are really specialized in this particular area. And in those cases, what we typically do is try to get a sense of people in the facility sometimes drives it, and also student interest in terms of what might be interest for that community that we see as an opportunity. So as an example, it's not always kind of a distance or how many, it really is. So we know our healthcare Chisholms are really, really popular in terms of what it looks like. So we're finding things that made us so great. We're putting them in more schools that are close so that we have students that are applying to those programs have more options and opportunities. There's lots of flexibility depending on interest for students to, again, access any of those types of programs that they'd like. But also, as you get a little bit more familiar with the high school experience, students you don't have to be in ISTEP to go into engineering, per se. You don't need to go into a business Chisholm program in order to get into IB at Western. You have all of those programs at every single high school that we have. You can have all the prerequisites and experiences that you need in order to be able to have some great post-secondary, well, any post-secondary option available to you. And so I guess I know I'm answering in a very long way, but it really is kind of dependent on what the needs are, what the patterns are, what we're hearing for student interest, what we have in terms of. So if I'm at a school and I see I have a really robust transportation program, I might be looking at some of those Chisholm opportunities because I'm going to know I'm going to have a really great group of senior kids that will be really engaged in those programs. To run anything, it always involves having student enrollment. And so ultimately students drive that within our community. And we really try to be on the ground and have a very good sense of what students are interested in, applying for, and principals talk through and advocate, and then really try to put all of those programs in those places that make sense.
So my other question, do you also consider when you decide what type of the programs will be in the school, make the statistic from what's actually now in the Northeast area, what those students are taking programs in the HDSB, to see those schools in the affected boundaries, what is their what is their ruling or where they are going, which program statistically, because of course the HDSB, they have all this data.
Yeah.
And then accordingly you will know which program exactly will grab the student to become a school.
Yes, for sure. We for sure look at course enrollment patterns. We do
That makes
that. We do that at the school level. We do that at the regional level. So again, then you all the secondary school principals, you look at the course options and you know what the demands are, what courses need to be run, because you have that historical data. You'd also look at that regionally, just as you said, you know, there's certain programs that are popular. And so when we see an over subscription, we think about where other places that may be realistic to land and be able to support as many students to access those types of programs.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And if I may add, if I may expand just a little bit too, 2 points. One, you know, there's going to be an opportunity for, when the principal is named, to work with the elementary schools that feed into that school to really start to talk to the kids about what is it that they want to see in their high school, right? To make sure that we are offering the programs that are going to serve their needs, right? So student voice is really important in making those decisions, because student enrollment, as we stated before, drives programming. The second point is that what we start with may not be where we end with, right? It will evolve over time, right?
Correct.
So if we start with something and we see that we need another program where students are advocating for something, or community demographics shift and needs shift, then we start to put in new programs and evolve the programs over time too, as the population grows.
Thank
you. Yeah. Back to you, Fred. Would you like us to step in over there? Because we can.
By all means, I will get you another booth.
Okay. We're here for the
They're
support team.
comfy. They're
We're
comfy.
here for the support team.
All right, so maybe I'll throw this, like, are we okay with the 6? Just to get by, but like, or do we want to add another one, or?
Pretty broad enough for me all. It encompasses a lot.
Yeah.
And we can definitely like focus in, like, now that we know what your areas of focus are too, like we can tie them into the ones that are in there. So as you're looking at them, by all means, like make those connections and further expand, because we'll be doing that as part of our exercise, which I want to get to sooner rather than later. All right, so let's end on this one.
Sorry, just out of curiosity, why did you guys decide to go with grade 9 and 10? Why not just jump right in and do the full, all the years?
So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is sometimes especially in new development areas, what you'll see is that there's sometimes a smaller number of the higher grades available in the first place. It's when we open a new school, like you'll see like your grade 8 cohorts are usually really small and they start building up because a lot of movements or a lot more on the younger side. So again, with the viability of the program, make sure we got that critical mass. Sometimes we just don't have the numbers we need to get to 11 and 12 with the schools that we have. So that's why we don't typically go ahead with it. And the second reason oftentimes is, and this changes from area to area, like if there was a higher concentration, maybe we would have, but the second is by the time you're in 11 and 12, you have your pathways, you have your connections. That school probably you're well entrenched into the whole community. So especially at the secondary panel, it becomes increasingly more difficult to get in. So like, I would never really go all the way to 12-12. You want them to graduate with their cohorts. Like you want them to, and by the time you're in 11, you're probably looking at the same situation. Like you're nearing the end. So it'd be very hard for us to, pull someone out at that point in time. And that's usually why we stick to 9 and 10 as kind of the cutoff point, like the midpoint. Same thing with elementary. Elementary, usually say your grade 8's like, we let you graduate out again, just because we acknowledge like you made those connections, you want to have that, share that experience with your cohorts, at least for your graduating year. So that's the reason why. Tab's not working.
When we have the data here, does it, since the grade 8s right now have already kind of mostly decided where they're going for the coming September, is that like the amount of kids that are leaving
not going to White Oaks or not going to Garfield or the affected schools, that's all considered in this.
That's pretty much it, but those kids aren't, they're like in the numbers that we have, those kids are gonna be the ones that remain. So next year's grade nines. Sorry, I always get this.
I know I meant more from a projection perspective, like we have a sense of how many kids actually leave their boundaries to go to other schools.
Do you mean like, are they like not attending our board or retention rates or things? Is that what you're
Like that
referring to?
are going to out of boundary schools, like.
Yeah, we do account for that. Maybe not in these scenarios particularly, but in all of these scenarios, they're built off of historic trends. So if we have a number of students that leave, that's kind of the, remember I was referring to the survival model earlier, the survival model earlier. It's tracking the students from 9, 10, 11, 12, what their movement is. So we might see that there's a decline between grade 9 and 10 that occurs. So we usually incorporate that within our numbers. And if there's a specific program or there's like a higher number of students that do it, then we start building in rules to say, always apply 5% of students are going to go to grade 10, or even if it's grade 8 to 9 with programs, we'll say like, you know, apply this many students that are going to go to this school versus this school, acknowledging the cross area. So it's all part of, you know, we look to the past, dictate the future. All right. So I'm wondering, do you need a refresher on the options, or would you like to jump into our open discussion and just start looking at the numbers, looking at the options? I'm thinking of just kind of jamming you guys into one group. We got some foam core boards with the options. You can start putting Post-its on it and then discussing what you feel about each one of the 3 options and then come back as a group, or do you want me to go through them again?
I think you can go through one more time, just very quickly.
One more time, very quickly.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. All right, so option refresh. So I'm gonna skip status quo because do nothing and this one's not gonna fly. Because we're opening a new school, we need a boundary. So option number 1. So the English in all 3 options, they're all the same. So I'll say this. In terms of what we're doing for the English track. There we go. All right. So in all the options, zone 1 here is currently going to, do you not see it? Huh. Okay.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm like drawing stuff on my screen. You guys haven't been seeing it at all the entire time. The more you know. So zone 1, this one over here historically goes to White Oaks. Now we're sending it down to Garth Webb. Most of the students are living right here. All the rest is employment. Garth Webb's right here, so it's a lot more proximate than getting to the high school. So again, just make sure we have proximity to school. Everyone else over here from the creek all the way over to the edge of the municipal boundary, that's going from WAS over to the new high school, 9, 10, and then adding a grade every year. This will address the split cohorts that we do have in the north for the time being. Safe and accept, we got River Oaks and a couple areas too that are holding for new development, but eventually when we have the new schools open, that'll all get resolved and everybody in the north will go to the high schools with their grade 8 cohorts. In terms of F5 for option 1, this is where the majority of the changes happen. Zones 6 and 7 in this option, they're gonna, well, currently everyone north of Dundas is going to WASP for F5. Now we're starting to divvy it up. So zones 1, 2, 7, and 6 to have all the split cohort or get rid of the split cohorts. We're sending them all to Garth Webb. So we're kind of taking these guys and shifting them all the way over here. No, Udinawi and Dr. David are directed to Forest Trail right now for elementary F5. Sending them over to Garth Webb. The Oakville 5 area remains at, which is currently going at Sunningdale, and which will make up the future Oakville 5 boundary. They're going to continue going to WAS, and we're going to fix the Iroquois Ridge situation right now, which currently goes to WAS, and redirect them back to Iroquois Ridge. So the entirety of the grade 8 cohorts for months will be going together. And again, that's a consistent move that we're making in all 3 options, that zones 8, 9, 10. we'll always go to Iroquois Ridge just to get rid of that split cohort. Same thing with zone 1 over here and 2. Numbers wise, and this is the same in all the options. Start with 9-10 with growth and everything else, and the addition of grades year over year. Just get to our capacity. We've got some nice room for additional growth. This assumes current retention rates. If we do improve and we have better retention rates, I'd expect this to increase slightly higher. We do have room for 18 portables on site, so that's pretty standard. And typically with high schools, you can get to 5 period days, so you can squeeze in quite a bit of capacity in these things without really feeling the pain. So once we start getting to this point, however, that's when we're going to have the opportunity to start looking at the new high school east of Trafalgar. In terms of loss, this will be generally the same in all the options. Just recall, here we've got the on-the-ground capacity of the South Campus, which is primarily where the majority of the classrooms are. And then the additional North Campus, which has your vocational rooms, a lot of your CPP classes, and some additional gyms. And then the max capacity of 12 portables or 24 portables. Overall, by removing the North, like we are declining the enrollment quite a bit. We're keeping the South Campus full, but we do have opportunities here for additional programs and or uses from the board. As we mentioned earlier with IB, now that we have some additional space, maybe we can explore having even higher cap in terms of how many pre-IB students we're accepting at the school. Garth Webb, with the increase of students coming in for FI, definitely bolstering their numbers and keeping them above their capacity where they've been for quite some time. So we'll remain with a healthy enrollment. So hopefully that school can remain stable. Iroquois Ridge with the additional students, somewhat the same story. We're taking that north growth and sending it their way. So again, that's helping their numbers, keeping cohorts together. And then this one's primarily, it's less about increasing numbers, more about keeping those split cohorts together. Option 2, the English track was one and the same, so I won't go over that one again. French immersion this time around, zone 1 continues to go to Palermo just so that they can not have a split cohort either. So this stays consistent for all the options. In this case here, just acknowledging that they're a lot more proximate in part to White Oak Secondary School. We're just shifting all of them south to White Oaks and then Iroquois Ridge. So in option 2, we're really looking at kind of a north-south direction in terms of their secondary enrollment. And eventually this might, well, like we were mentioning earlier, even for the elementary track, we might have to explore removing one of the feeder schools from Forest Trail because it's starting to get oversubscribed and it's going to burst through its max capacity soon if we don't do anything. So eventually that'll align most of the split cohorts. Udinawi, though, is the other one where we're trying to balance it out, is that we don't want to pull away too much from Forest Trail, because back when we did this review, Forest Trail had a lot of space available and we managed to fill that. We expected portables, but now with Fraser report, that was one of the things we were concerned about, was ranking. Don't worry about the ranks, just the Fraser report. It has boosted the numbers quite a bit, so we're seeing a huge number of students come in. So that's some of the concerns we have on that one. WAS, in terms of its numbers, very similar to option 1, like it'll see a higher number. We still have some space to accommodate for additional IB. Garth Webb sees less of that intake and growth, so it does see a little bit more decline over the years. Iroquois is one and the same. And last but not least, option 3, kind of a hybrid between 1 and 2. This one, the biggest shift is 2 and 7. We're sending it back to Garth Webb. And that's looking to our future plans that we're looking at for Forest Trail in removing one of the FI feeder schools, namely Dr. David R, Zone 6, and sending it to WAS. So that way, Forest Trail, we're addressing their elementary pressures that they're seeing right now in grade 2. And then this will at least align with the split cohort for grade 8. And Udinawi, albeit there's Udinawi going Forest Trail, they'll continue on the Garth Webb. So that way, at an elementary side of things, which will be part of another review, we're balancing out the enrollment between Forest Trail and Sunningdale, giving Sunningdale a little bit more of a boost because they have the space. And we're taking a lot of the pressure off of Forest Trail right now, which is nearing their max capacity a lot faster than we needed it to, which is going to result in another boundary. So this will distribute that. And this takes that into account and makes sure that the split cohorts won't occur come grade 8. So all these kids are going to Sunningdale, which then ties directly into WASP. All these kids go to Forest Rail, which then go into Garthway. And all the grade 8s, they're all in the same class. So there's no split cohorts in this option, assuming that we implement grade 8, the elementary boundaries. Number wise, again, very similar, WASP. Again, we're splitting it, so they've got a little bit better enrollment than they did in option 1, a little bit less than option 2. Garth Webb, again, we're splitting the difference, so they maintain Unawi as a driver of growth, improves their numbers long term, so they stay at capacity for a longer period, and Iroquois Ridge remains the same. Part we've all been waiting for, you just stop talking. So, I've been waiting for it. So I'm gonna jam you into a group. I think we were expecting more people, but pretty tight knit groups. So I think it might be a better discussion this way. Some questions that you want to look at in terms of the 3 options. We'll pull up the forum course. What do you like? What do you don't like about it? What's beneficial to the community? What specific parts are redeemable? Where you see some challenges coming up for families based on the criteria, looking at some of the concerns we went to some pretty good detail into. Do you feel the option meets the criteria? Can it be improved? What kind of tweaks and balances can we make to it to make it a better option maybe for the community? Is there something else we should be exploring at this point in time? And then, so yeah, those are the main questions there. And then have an idea in the back of your mind too for the public information meeting, because we're kind of getting to that point too. Ideally, I like to have 2 options at a meeting, but up to 3, which is all we have right now. But up to 3 is what I max out at. Otherwise, we're giving too much choice, and then we're not gonna. Not that we're voting on the option, but I think you'll just have a lot of split opinions on it. So. If we can have an idea that maybe stick to 2, but if we do feel strongly about 3, I'm fine with that too. So with that, again, good opportunity for a break, get some refreshments, and then we'll jump right into the activity. Maybe we can do is push those tables over there. If you feel comfortable or. Okay, so we, discuss the options. Maybe we'll just skip the Mentimeter, so we'll do a quick verbal on that. So kind of based on the discussion you guys had with the options, where did you guys pretty much land on where you wanted to go with the,
I think we like option 3.
Yeah.
And
You can
not
take this
so
one
much
if you
option
want.
2.
Yep, we'll take pictures and record it afterwards.
Okay.
Is there, like, I think some of the points that we were discussing is we want to make sure we're respecting split cohorts as much as possible.
Yes.
Option
Correct.
1 achieves that. Option 3 also achieves that with future implementation of the elementary boundary review. I think one of the considerations we want to have for option 3 was that ensuring kids that are currently legacy exempted at
Yes.
Dr. David R. Williams will be able to continue at WAS
Yes.
connections, and then we'll do a later implementation afterwards for
So 6 and 7.
exactly.
Or until 2028 school year.
So we'll push implementation out there. Option 1 we'll keep because it's currently keeping the grade 8 cohorts with Garthwood together. The one limitation there is if we're making any changes for the F5 boundary going to Forest Trail and splitting Hood now and Dr. David R between Sunningdale and it, that might be a concern that we have. So we have to be cognizant of that. Option 2 we left off the table because albeit it lined everything else nicely for North and South. The future implementation of the future change may not make it as viable. So that summarizes the discussion we kind of had.
Yep.
And English track, we're fine with no further changes. It's good the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's the boundaries that like lines out.
And
Exactly.
if you like to go with only 2 option, I think option 1 and 3 would be good. And
Yeah. If we're
and
taking
not
one, two,
consider option 2.
All right, sounds good. So we'll skip the Mentimeter. So the next one's going to be the public information meeting. We're going to present those 2 options. We're going to reach out via email, but it would be good to have a parent rep, maybe 2 of you call to maybe speak at that meeting too. If you're comfortable, just explain what the process was that we went through, the discussions that were had, and the criteria. And then staff will give a very similar presentation about how we got to this point. the two options, and it opened up for feedback. And yeah, usually the feedback form, we just ask a number of questions about where the families are, what grades their kids are in, future grades, what their concerns are, and we give them an opportunity to rate the options. So
this is just an example.
it's just an
Not
example of what it would
exactly.
look like.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because I was seeing the dates.
Yeah, this is actually
November.
from the Oakville 3 and 5
and-
boundary. So
yeah.
yeah, so with that, after our PIM, we'll have our next meeting on the 9th, and that's where we'll finalize what we want to present to the steering committee for approval and go from there.
So what about the March 2nd?
March 2nd is the public information meeting. So that one's going to be virtual, online. It starts at 7 o'clock.
Yes, I don't know if we're toying around making it earlier, but, for whatever reason, I don't, is that a concern? Have early seating?
Yes, 7
Because
o'clock.
of the,
Yeah.
because we are in Ramadan, so the
Yeah.
fasting time, it will become at 6:30.
So what
Yeah,
would be
so
better
March
time? for
2nd,
your-
March 2nd, it will become at 5:36.
Okay,
But after the daylight changing, saving time, it will become at 6:30. That's why I'm looking for the 9th, because the 9th will become after the daylight saving, which
Right.
is 6:30, it will be the fasting time.
okay,
And then for the March 2nd, it will become at 5:36. So if you do it before early, like around 4 o'clock, I think it will be good.
7 o'clock is, or it's not, it's inconvenient.
It is inconvenient.
Yeah, 'cause 4 o'clock might be too early for a lot of the,
Yeah.
like families that are still at work, like a lot of 9 to 5ers, 9 to 6ers. So if
How
there was a
about- how about
time,
later, does that work?
What time?
7:30, 8 o'clock?
How long? That is
I think it's gonna be an
hour.
hour. Like it's gonna be,
Not even, I would think, an hour, probably.
Yeah.
An hour.
It should be fine.
Like eight.
I think, no, you know what, keep it 7 because of the reason. Like, even if the fasting will be break by 6 something,
Yeah,
then the usual prayer starts by 8 for all the mosques around.
okay, I see.
So from 7 to 8, they will finish and then we go.
Or, you can even drop in for like a quick.
Yeah, I think 7 will be good. Just
and
keep it.
it's all video
Yeah,
recorded
yeah,
too,
yeah,
which would
yeah.
be important.
Just keep
So
it-
And the
they
main
can
part is that
view it.
sharing the feedback form, I mean, as long as the people get that, and, we have the email, ask
Yeah,
questions.
just
So,
keep it,
okay.
don't change.
So 7 o'clock.
Go ahead, do
7 o'clock's
that.
good.
7 o'clock is good.
All right, and same with the 9th, that's good. If
The
we're,
9th, what time?
we're flexible, like it can't be too early because we got work hours, but yeah,
So here's the question, do we keep it in person or do you want it virtual?
I'm good at either way.
Is virtual more?
Virtual is more, and the 5th is 5
You don't get cookies, but we can do virtual.
No, I don't need cookies, I'm fine. I already have gluten allergy, I have gluten allergy, so. I'm good.
Oh,
Should we virtual, 5:30? Virtual.
virtual, okay, we'll do virtual and then
5:30.
send out a survey for the time, but I'm okay with that. Okay.
Okay. sounds
So
great.
that's great. Again, guys, thank you. Sorry, we went over time.
Thank you so much.
Great discussion tonight, though. I do
Thanks,
appreciate
yeah, have a
it.
good night.